interesting stretch for the San Antonio Spurs where you beat the Oklahoma City Thunder 3 times in 12 days. Put yourself in a position where people are wondering, hey, not only are you the second best team in the West, are you just a championship contender? And then you lose consecutive home games to Utah and the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is tied back to my theme for the day, which is, hey, it's not easy to win. And what's your identity and what are teams doing to you? So what gets interesting to me is, okay, one thing you've done is you've made the switch. Victor Wembanyama's back in the starting lineup, something we expected to happen at some point. Couldn't always come off the bench, even though I wanted to push the Sixth Man of the Year agenda for giggles. Okay, how is that disrupting the flow offensively? Are your guards getting involved early? Is Wemby looking to drive? How are we using Wemby? It just kind of changes the dynamic just a little bit. And then another thing I'm looking at is just trying to understand and grasp how are teams going to try and poke at the Spurs defensively. So we've seen Victor Wembanyama be a force on defense. We know what he does as far as protecting the rim. He really alters shots. He's great at rotating. We've seen him switch, get back to the baseline. How are teams starting to poke at that? And so you saw a little bit between Utah and Cleveland as far as, okay, we're going to space Yusuf Nurkic on the wing. And we're going to count on you making this rotation, and then we're going to dive. Or if we know if you guys are going to rotate behind Victor Wembanyama's help, we're going to cut to disrupt those rotations. And we're going to poke at you in that way to kind of just make it a little uneasy so it's not as automatic for you. If you look at the Cleveland game, Jared Allen just kind of snaking around the dunker spot area, around the baseline. So when Wembanyama was holding or looking to rotate on drives, hey, we can find this pass. We're going to put someone who you may think is a non-shooter in the corner because we know you're going to roam and you're going to help. Now it's an open look for us that we feel confident we can knock down. So is that something that becomes, like I like to call, not a book on a team, but is this something that other teams can implement? You know, copycat league as far as, okay, when we're watching, we're scouting for a team, if I see something that we can replicate that a team struggles with, we may put it in and we may try and poke at you. So does it get interesting in that aspect where San Antonio gets back to a box of having to deal with team switching? People are able to poke at San Antonio's defense a little bit more. That's going to be something that I feel like they may have to navigate at some point during the season. So I'm just intrigued by that portion. I think they're really good. Wemby's really good. But at the same time, okay, what's their next challenge? I think that's where my mind goes.
No, I think that is a fair one. I kind of want to hang with the where you spacing Wemby portion a bit. Because like that was, you know, as a sicko, I was going to be intrigued by like Utah versus good team. Because like, what is that going to look like with what Utah wants to do on both ends of the floor, and particularly offensively? And so like, I'm glad you mentioned like spacing Wemby at the wing with Nurkic in particular, who just quietly having a solid year in Utah, by the way. So it's just like Utah has been so good under Will Hardy at we're going to space our big up here. You can play off if you want to. We are going to flare someone behind it. We're going to set a pin in if we need to. Or you can just toss it to me. We can flow right into two-man game. And like that can naturally disrupt some of the roaming that Wemby or any kind of defensive big wants to do in that spot. And so like I have my eyes on that matchup. So I'm glad you brought that portion of the program up. And like that's a question that I've been thinking about for a while when it comes to Victor Wembanyama because of how much of the floor he can take away defensively. Like what is the best way to go at him if you can? Like one of the early things that I noted in the Christmas Day matchup between OKC and San Antonio is like in that first quarter, it was not always successful. But I was like, oh, some of these drives for OKC are a little bit deeper than they were in the previous two matchups. They're like actively going at Wemby a little bit more. Like they recognize we have to get some real estate in the paint. Like we can't just wall off and take a bunch of jumpers. We kind of have to do something different. You had some of the late cutting that was happening behind them. So as you mentioned, some of the dives in the Utah matchup, like that also brought that back to I was like, okay, so here's some things. OKC did not sustain it. Their offense eventually died. But it's like, okay, here's some elements here. And like, I do wonder if teams get to a point to where they land on, yeah, let's actually have him just at the wing and cut somebody from that corner and just keep that guy spaced on the wing. Because I feel like that's something that you see from teams during like traditional pick and rolls a lot anyway, where you may have like that corner to wing lift, or as they're setting something up, that guy from the opposite corner is going to cut through while the pick and roll is happening. And you just have someone on the wing, so it ends up being an empty corner more than an empty side kind of pick and roll. Like, is that something that you use to kind of play with Wemby? And does that unlock any kind of other off-ball things there?
I think it has to be a blend. You have to poke at a little bit of everything. I don't think you can show him one look because it's more, can we disrupt the help behind the helper purely than exposing just his help? So can we put him in positions where he's in different spots? So where we switch get him on the wing, and now we set a flare on him to keep him involved in an action while we're trying to do something else? Can we get him in stack pick and roll so now he's in the action, but also, okay, are you navigating it back to the rim? Can we play off of you rotating from the baseline and get a kick and play out of that? So I think it's more just setting the table to move the pieces around, because I don't think it's going to be one simple thing. If you just go empty corner, he's just going to roam over there. He's super tall, and they're going to be able to rotate behind it. But I think if you can put them in a position where we're playing off of Wemby's rotations and we're also making everyone else do something a little bit different, that's when we can open things up.
Okay. I think that's fair. That gets to the offensive integration with him being in the starting lineup now. I guess I was expecting a more fluid transition than what I've seen, especially with just how they've been able to have that blend since he's been back. But like, I don't have any, and I don't think you do either, but like, I don't have any long-term concerns about that ultimately getting there. Like, I think their drivers are just too good. And I think all three of those guys have developed a level of chemistry with Wemby either on and off the ball to where you just make that work. So I think that's going to be more of a time deal. But it has been interesting seeing some of the hitches. Like, you saw a little bit of that in the Cleveland game, where it's like, oh, okay, this isn't as free-flowing, quick attack. Y'all are in the scramble mode. Oh no, as we were seeing in some of those during some of those stretches in the Thunder matchup. So I think it is worth keeping an eye on indeed. While I guess loosely related to the Spurs, since they just played 3 times in 12 days, as you mentioned, I wanted to bring up the Thunder, who are coming off of a pair of double-digit wins. So, like, they are right back, still on pace for, like, 70 wins. Like, I am still, before I get into any of the questions or thoughts that I have, still the best team in the West, still the best team in the league to me, still on pace for 70. I still think they are the title favorites. So I want to set that aside. This is where I am at still as of now.
So what are we doing here?
What? Well, now, with that set aside, it brings me back to kind of what you were mentioning earlier with, has a team just got us, or is there something that we're putting on film consistently that other teams can kind of take parts of and bother us? And like, that was my bigger thing zooming out from the Spurs matchups, which not only 3-0, they beat you at home, they beat you on the road, and they beat you in a neutral site. Like, it's kind of tough to get that literal trifecta in that short amount of time. But I was just kind of wondering how much of those issues are Spurs/Wemby specific versus, okay, maybe the Rockets can get to some of this if they match up in the second round. Maybe insert Western Conference team here. And so, like, that brought the microscope back to Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren to me. Because in the Spurs games, they were not themselves. Jalen Williams obviously working his way back into comfort from the injury. So, like, I have grace, a natural level of grace there. So I don't want to put too much on that. But in those Spurs matchups, 15.3 points per game on roughly 45% true shooting. Took 11 threes, 36 twos, didn't get to the rim a ton. His average shot distance was 14 feet in those matchups. Against everyone else in the league, the average shot distance around 11 feet. Natural indicator of, okay, the rim shots just have not really been there. Chet Holmgren, similar thing. 11 points on 51 true shooting against the Spurs this year. 8 threes, 19 twos, average shot distance of 13 feet, about 12 feet against everyone else. And so I just kind of wonder, something that you brought up as we were talking about these games, is teams being more willing to put smaller players on Chet. This is not a new problem. We saw it last year. We saw it the year before last. He answered the bell enough last season as the Thunder ended up winning their championship. But even during the finals, there were elements of, hey, haven't heard from Chet in a little bit offensively. It'd be nice for him to have a surge here, etc. And so, like, I just kind of wonder, even with that, is this still just something Chet has to solve? Are we going to see more teams just naturally match up with wing on Chet? Or can the Spurs hit him in very specific ways? And with Jalen Williams and some of the half-court creation, when he's at his best in transition, he's at his best in the half court when he has the pull-up midi going. And for me, I want this to be the mid-range is a very effective counter for him versus this is kind of my default when I have to self-create. And so again, Victor Wembanyama brings a level of, well, I really can't get to the rim if he's on the court right now. But like, this is a process thing with Jalen that, even as I was super high on him last year, as you very well know, that was still something that I brought up, like, hey, how often is he getting all the way to the rim? Because I think he could be more helpful there. So, like, those are just kind of things I was like,
well, I think the overall concept, if you're looking at the Thunder, is if you're a team facing them, how many of our guys do we feel comfortable guarding Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren? If we feel like we could switch a whole bunch of people on them, okay, are we ready to live with the result? Are we able to keep them in front? And does this slow them down? I think
Mhm.
that's overall the mindset you'd be going for if you're trying to do that. Now, it quickly changes if Jalen Williams is able to win a matchup or Chet's able to win a matchup. And now, okay, we're not making them less decisive and they're scoring or getting free throws out of this. Is this sustainable? So I think you have to ask yourself how many teams can put that amount of defenders on those two, because you still have to deal with Shea, and you only have so many people that you feel comfortable with guarding Shea. So how many teams can really switch everything? Houston has some lineups they can get to, but can you do that consistently? I think that's the key. How many guys you got for those two, and does it slow them down?
Okay, so that was just a thought bubble. Again, they want to hang there too long on the Thunder because again, I am still very high on them, and I still think they win the championship as of today.